Thank you. Hi, everyone. We'll give it a few more minutes. Adam, thank you for coming. See here, I see his name on the participants, but I don't see him on the.
He's here. I just asked him. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I see. It must want me to turn to the next page already. Hi, Adam. Hi, Remy. Margaret. Okay, well, it's only 5 o'clock now.
You can get started whenever. You do only have until 6:10.
Okay, well, right, I know, because we have landmarks tonight, right? Okay, Gail is here. Let's just give it a minute for in case Peggy comes. Okay, I know Barry has to leave also, so why don't we just get started? We'll wait one more minute and then we'll get started. And hopefully Barry will be able to finish before you've got to go. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Hi, Max.
Hey, Lita.
Thank you. Okay, 5:02. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to the working group of the Art Committee of CB8. We're a new group and a new committee, and am excited. I'm excited to share with you that we have a name for our initiative, which is City Canvas. So I think that's a good one, and we'll be working with that both for the visual arts and for performing arts. So I've taken the liberty of inviting Adam Wald to join us this evening, and because Adam has a full-time job as well as being an active board member, I thought it would be useful to just cut right to the chase. I asked Adam to join us so he could talk. He's in commercial real estate, so he could talk about landlords. So, and in my conversations with Adam, we talked about the idea of having art displays, as they did with Art on the Ave, in the storefronts of either vacant or occupied spaces. And I'm assuming if they're occupied, it's not necessarily the store owner alone who has the ability to make decisions about displaying art and under what circumstances. So I know from the experience of Art on the Ave with respect to both Columbus Avenue and their new exhibition in the village somewhere, that it has been hard to wrangle landlords into giving their approval. So Adam, welcome, and I'll turn it over to you. And if you just want to answer questions or you want to talk about what you know or how we could work together, that would be great.
Yeah. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Wow, you look like you're in a spaceship.
No, I'm in an upstairs office in my house in Massachusetts, which I just got here yesterday. I didn't have anything specifically prepared other than what I was going to.
You were losing your sound.
Oh, really?
You just got you faded a lot.
Oh, sorry. What I was just going to say is that I think it's important that landlords feel comfortable with the process, and that they understand that they're not married to any long-term agreement. And I think in general, when we talked about this before, is that it's about having a collection. I don't think it makes sense to have one piece of art up in one storefront and there's no collection that surrounds it. So it makes sense to me that you're going to have to kind of work together with multiple landlords, whether it's a concentration on 86th Street or concentration on 3rd Avenue. I think that's what's going to make the most sense. I'm not sure. I remember when we spoke, we were looking at 3rd Avenue as a possible cluster. I don't know what other clusters you had envisioned, or if this was, because to me it doesn't make sense to just do one on one street and then one on another street. I think it's got to be more of a clustered action. And I don't know if that was something you guys had furthered.
Well, I've noticed that there are clusters of vacant storefronts on Lexington in the 70s, particularly I think between 73rd and 76th, maybe there are a lot of vacant storefronts on both the east and west sides of the street. That's only because I tend to walk on Lexington more than I do on 3rd or 2nd. 3rd, I think, is hard, as we talked about, because they don't have the same foot traffic that they had before the 2nd Avenue subway was built. And what we want to do is have foot traffic. While I don't want to, I certainly hope that 3rd Avenue revitalizes. One of the arguments to having this kind of art display is that it brings people to look at the storefronts. People who are normally there will stop and look at the art. And if we don't already have the foot traffic, it might not be enough to pull them in. One of the appeals was that people, when they'd go by the store, the first time they'd see the art out of the corner of their eye, then they would notice it. Then they, on the 3rd or 4th time, they'd click on the QR code and they'd think about buying it, or they'd hear from the artist. So I'm not sure 3rd Avenue is the right one right now, but certainly what everyone else thinks makes sense. 2nd Avenue, I'm sure, like every other avenue, has vacancies. Does anyone have any ideas of what might be useful to pursue? Or Adam, you're so familiar with commercial real estate, where you think there might be good vacancies combined with good landlords. When I say good, I don't mean vacancies are ever good, but you know what I mean.
Well, when I was just walking up and down 2nd Avenue yesterday, and there's not as many vacancies as you would expect. I feel like 2nd Avenue has survived much better than the other avenues, for sure. I mean, on York, we have a lot more new vacancies in the upper 70s. That could be a concentration that we look at as well. But I don't see there's not a big collection of vacancies on 2nd Avenue unless I'm missing something. Does anybody else see something different? I wasn't seeing that, at least in the 70s and into the low 80s.
Does anyone have any comments? Barry, you're applauding. Are you agreeing? Could you unmute Barry, please?
No, I was going to make a suggestion for a space. Currently, the Manhattan House on 2nd Avenue has their storefronts are vacant. But I'm sorry, not all, but most of them are vacant. You might take a look at that.
In the Manhattan House, they have
Yes.
storefronts? Okay.
Yes. On 2nd Avenue.
Is that any connection to, that's not the Sharma? Is that the name of it? It's a child of the Durst organization, real estate group. But okay, so they're just
No.
independent. Adam, do you know? Okay.
The Shoshana is in our building on 64th Street.
Okay. So we could look at Lexington, we could look at the Manhattan House. I don't know, York Avenue feels like it's really far east to get people up there. There's no public transportation in the sense of subways. So maybe not York, at least for right now. Anyone else have any ideas or suggestions?
I just want to say that I spoke to Maria at Maz Mezcal, and she was willing to use her restaurant, especially the entranceway, as a showing spot, as long as she wasn't interested in pictures of nudes or that sort of thing, but generally speaking, she was willing. So it led me to think that, you know, in that vicinity, which is my neighborhood, there are various restaurants, and maybe several of them might be able to have a showing at one time, you know, kind of thing, which is a possibility.
And maybe thank you for talking to her, Peggy. Maybe that's an idea of something small that we could grab onto and that use that as the first stepping stone. So show the landlords in the actual vacant storefronts that this has been something that we've done successfully. I don't know, Adam, what do you think?
I think landlords like predictability, and knowing if something had worked previously, I think that they would be more likely to embrace it. I think, if everyone knows, the corner of 2nd and 78, they've had that art in the window for years and years and years because
Yes.
yeah. So
I think we're aiming for something a little different.
yeah, I was going to
Late
say
night
that is not so great.
Yeah.
the way they have that set up.
It always struck me as the over the sofa paintings that they would sell on late night TV, but I don't mean to be biased. Well, then maybe that's something that we could do and figure out and talk to other restaurants. Is there anyone who has a relationship with any other of the restaurants on the street on 86th Street, Gail?
Well, I was going to suggest that we speak with Elaine and the 86th Street Association, because they do have those relationships. And I don't think that we have to lock ourselves into 2nd Avenue or 3rd or Lex. I think that we should look at who is receptive, because by doing this broad, I like clusters, but it doesn't matter if you've got a lot of empty space. In other words, if you've got one storefront that looks like it's ideal for art, but you've got rental spaces on either side, that's fine. In other words, it doesn't just have to be to attract people to the empty storefront, although that's certainly a very positive reason. I know when we did this along Jackson Avenue, we found that the stores that were open that didn't have an empty storefront, they benefited too from that extra street traffic, because people would just go to take a look at, walk over and say, gee, what is that? And kind of look at the picture that's just the picture in a storefront. And then, oh my goodness, look at this interesting shop that's next to it. Maybe I'll go and check things out. So I think it can be a little organic. I think we can cluster. We don't have to look and say, here are 2 blocks with all empty storefronts. I mean, if we find that, that's fine. But what I think Peggy's right, wherever we have receptivity, that's what we should do, because we have to also be able to ensure that we can cover the insurance and the installation cost. And if a landlord is letting you get into their space, they want to feel very secure that there's not going to be anything that's going to happen, to their physical structure or to their employees, or someone who might be, even if they're open, someone who might be coming in as a patron. So I think we should try to, maybe we can just volunteer, and a handful of us could just go to a particular geographic area and just kind of see what the storefronts look like. Because just because you have a storefront, it may not be ideal for basically representing the art the best way possible. But if we can kind of just identify a handful of things, and like we've said before, maybe we look at restaurants first. We could have subsets. So we can have art and eat type of things under the city canvas. So we can do, or retail, we can kind of figure out how we do something just with retailers.
Yeah, well, I like the idea of doing something, and I'm interested in everyone else's opinion, of doing something controlled and that will signify success. So maybe the idea of East 86th Street restaurants. So Elaine is on the board.
She's the president.
Yes, she's the president. And also I've worked with Lewis Parks from East 86th Street when we did all of those reopening programs last spring. Who would like to talk to any of them?
I'll do that.
Well,
I'll volunteer.
I can talk to the restaurants that are on 86 between 1st and 2nd. Some of the other restaurants that are actually on 86th Street are not that great. They're pizza shops. There's a hummus shop. There's a muffin shop. I don't know that most of the restaurants these days are west of 2nd Avenue or would be attractive venues. But there's 2 or 3 on my block that could be possibilities, and they being right near each other has an advantage, for logistically. I also want to ask a question. Are we definitely ruling out outdoor venues?
No,
Mm-mm.
no, this just seemed like a place to start. No, not ruling it out at all.
Because it seems like with the nicer weather approaching, at least by June, that parks or something like that could be easily accessible and logistically, convenient for consumers to, one-stop shopping.
Yeah, well, like the art, whatever that show is, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name, on in Carl Schurz Park.
Yeah.
And Rita Popper is coming to our next meeting to talk about using James Cagney Place for live performances, but that could also absolutely be a venue for an outdoor display. It's wide, there are benches, it's a nice street, it's near a park. So all of that could make sense. But I see this as kind of the little pieces like cogs maybe that together that we fit, they come closer and closer, and we could work on multiple things at once. So thank you, Gail, and thank you, Peggy, for taking on 86th Street. Rami, am I pronouncing that correct? I'm sorry if I'm not.
Yes.
Good, thank you.
This was something I heard about a while ago, and I have the contact information for, I guess, the president. But has anyone heard of the Second Avenue Merchants Association? Because it seems to me, this is just something I've heard through the grapevine, is that they deal with business owners on Second Avenue and or landlords. But I'm assuming there must be some sort of business association on the other avenues, but how come we've never heard of them?
They're not a bid. That's why they're not an officially recognized business improvement district. So it sounds like it could be a loose conglomeration of different businesses. But if you send that contact information, I want them for our small business committee anyway, to be able to come.
Okay.
But they might, but you're right, they might have a sense of landlords. Adam, do you work on 86th Street? I mean, do you have any dealings on 86th Street with any of the landlords, whether they're restaurants or any of the stores?
Yes.
Is there, do you think that there might be receptivity to this?
For some, yes, especially the old AMC theater.
That's what the one on 86th Street, that was
Yes,
the art house.
yes, but she's not happy because you guys want to take away her awning. There was someone wanted to take away the awning because it wasn't, because if she didn't get a movie theater in there, that was one of the, that was put forth, I think, in a land use or zoning meeting a while ago, which is that she has an awning that, or a marquee, I'm sorry, a marquee. But if she was not able to get a movie theater tenant, there was a push to have her get rid of the marquee.
That I don't remember. I remember that they came before the board to get a movie theater tenant last February, or last
Right.
February I spoke to them, and last April or May they came to the board, and we had no problem approving a movie theater.
Right, but so I think there was a few folks who brought up the idea that if they don't get a theater, they're gonna take away the marquee.
No, I don't remember.
That said, I know that she still has a space. That's a big space. I can ask her about that.
It's a good space if we could have access to the lobby, but I know that there are a lot of issues, but they have those glass displays for the one sheets along inside, and also the old ticket booth. So there could be,
I'll ask her. I'll email her.
that'd be great. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, getting back to what Rami was saying, Second Avenue, Third Avenue is now with the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. When Nancy Plague was head, she's formed the Second Avenue Business Association in response to the construction of the Second Avenue subway. You might check with Nancy and see what her thinking is, or speak with the head of the Manhattan Chamber on those two streets, because they do run the street fairs every year. God willing.
Yeah, can you send that information, Barry, to Max, and he could distribute it? Because I don't have that, and I'm not good at getting anything off the chat.
Max will do that for you tomorrow. I can't yet do it tonight.
That's okay. Thank you. I know you have a big evening ahead of you. Okay, well, that's good. And Adam, we could talk further about other potential possibilities on 86th Street, especially in conjunction with Gail and Peggy finding out. But that could be a really good start, especially if there are vacant spaces like the movie theater mixed in with non-vacant spaces. And I think the Mexican restaurant, I hope it still is popular. It was very popular. We had even board parties there. So,
Yes, indeed.
yeah, and she's been friendly. So I think that's great. Okay, that's really good. Updates on other things.
Alita, also, remember Mick will be coming to the next meeting.
Yes,
and
that's-
he's got a lot of his friends who own restaurants, so.
And bars.
And bars.
Notably
are
bars.
important. Everything will look good after the second or third drink, right?
2,000, why not 20,000? Okay. No, Mick is coming to our May meeting. Mick, and that's what I was going to get to, so thanks for bringing it up, is he moved out of our district, but he's very involved not only with bar owners, but also with theater in the city. And I talked to him about coming and talking to us about doing some kind of live theater on James Cagney Place or in other maybe park venues, so that we could bring maybe small, short one-act plays or readings or improvisation to, as well as, well, one of my doormen is a stand-up comic, so he has a whole spider's web of comics with lack of venues because a lot of them have closed in the city. So we could do an afternoon of stories, including comedy on James Cagney Place, and that's why I thought that having both Nick and Rita would be really useful in terms of the live performances of this, from music and dance to theater. And Mick is really interested in getting more theater on the Upper East Side. When I was much younger, there was an improv group that did shows all the time in the basement of a church, I think in the 70s. So that doesn't exist anymore, but this is a good time to reimagine what performing arts could be like in smaller, hopefully less expensive venues as well. I did, and I see that she's on the call. I did talk to Elizabeth Daly at the Frick, and we're going to, as things progress, find ways in which working together might not be the right word, but in which we can have some kind of support or figure out how we could do this. Is that right, Liz? If it's wrong, feel free to speak up. I'm searching for words because I'm not really sure what it will be, but some way.
It's more how we can be helpful to the effort.
Thank you.
That's really what it is. So yeah, so we'll just take it step by step.
Thank you. And you're looking well. It's been a long time. Thank you. And then also I talked to Will, and Will is on the phone, so we'll jump in about asking our council members, Ben Kalos and Keith Powers, if they have discretionary funding, and I have no idea what it is. And if it doesn't take away from the funding that's earmarked for a land use, if we could ask for a separate pot of discretionary funding from them for the art committee. I talked to Russell about this earlier. I talked to Will about it very, very briefly, very, very recently, in the idea of trying to get some kind of pot of money that we could use for insurance or for hanging the way the art on the Ave talked about, the gallery aesthetic quality of the spaces and of the hanging of the art that they did. So I think that that's something to explore, but I think it should also be at a regular meeting to talk about. Well, I don't know when it has to do. Will said we need to write a letter. Will? Are you there?
So clarification, nothing is earmarked in council discretionary funds. There's nothing that is guaranteed year over year. And
I know.
Every council member would tell you that, and all council land use would tell you that. So anyone can always ask for council discretionary funds. Usually, I mean, you have to be a nonprofit, or you have to fall into certain categories. We as a city agency fall into a category where we don't actually even have to fill out an application. So Art on the Ave has a disadvantage there compared to a community board. I will say that the average council grants are $2,500 or $5,000. So I don't know how far that gets you, especially when you're talking about insurance. I don't think that gets you very far.
Further than zero.
Further than zero. But you basically what you should do is plan to write a letter as soon as possible, asking to each council member, to both council members, saying this is the thing we would like to do. We expect it'll cost this amount of money, and we would appreciate council grants to achieve that goal.
Okay. So I could get some sense of what the hanging costs are from Art on the Ave, I think, in terms of insurance or any other expenses. Adam, do you have any idea what we might be looking at?
I don't know. I think the insurance is going to be more tied to the art than it is. I don't think it's an increase the building insurance per se. I think it's specific to the art. I can't say. I don't
Okay.
know.
Well, if they're not going into spaces except to hang it and take it down, and it's just in the windows, or in the case of the movie theater on the exterior, then you're not having people flowing in and out. And so maybe the insurance won't be as significant. So then if I could make this public, what do we think would be a good amount to ask for? I'm not sure that as much as possible. Is that a working term? Will? Probably not.
What I'll do is I'll try to get just an estimate, because where you've had Art on the Ave up to this point and similar types of events elsewhere, it's usually been sponsored by a business improvement district. With a bid, the actual amount of insurance is not that high because it's an add-on to their existing liability insurance policy. So we just have to figure out like a rough number of how many venues we would be seeking, and then just try to see what that number would be.
And you said you would do that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Alita, you also want to check to see if the community board indeed can take these kinds of funds. Going back to the early 2000s, when we formed the 197A committee, we needed to hire a planner. And the members of the board were adamant against having the money come directly to the board. We had to go to a finite conduit, which we did. And that's how we handled the money. So you might check into that aspect of it.
Okay. That's a good point. Thank you, Barry. Okay.
And just to point out, the community board, and therefore the city of New York, does not maintain insurance. We cannot just add something to our current insurance because we do not have insurance.
No, I know. I might be able to get some sense of numbers from Art on the Ave, because now they have a 501c3, which they used, I think, for their current exhibition in the village.
And there are strict guidelines of how council discretionary money can be spent. And I'm not sure paying things like insurance is one of those things. They have to be programmatic costs to create an event or something like that.
Well, maybe we could get a presenting sponsor, and the sponsor could give us a donation, which would cover the insurance cost, if that's the case. We have banks, we have, large institutions that might benefit, particularly if there are posters or anything advertising what we're doing and their name is right up.
So if we're talking about 86th Street, it's probably worth talking to Elaine or Lewis about that.
I'll ask her that as well.
Okay. And then let's think of, as long as we're here now, what kind of theme we might want for visual arts. I sent some suggestions that I came up with. They're doing Art on the Ave, did Healing, I think, on Columbus, and Awakening down in the village. We could tie it to something related to 9/11. We could tie it to something related to the city, or not at all. Any ideas, thoughts? I think I'll just throw it out there. I had, I think, suggested memories before and after, thinking about the virus, and I'm stuck on the last one. So,
well, does it have to be something depressing? I mean, like
no, that's
9/11 or, I mean, I think we'd have more opportunity if we had a broader theme than some specific event that as I say, could be kind of construed as depressing, like 9/11 or
Yeah,
the
did I
virus.
say 9/11? I wasn't even thinking of nine. I mean, I don't know why I said it. But that's not what I meant at all.
Yeah, I'd steer clear of the virus. That is really depressing.
No, but it's a time to imagine New York. So maybe New York City in the future could be something. But Peggy, you're so creative. What are you thinking?
Well, if we're thinking along the line of virus, maybe New York revives or something really positive.
New York Rising.
Yeah, that kind of thing. A positive theme.
Yes, I agree. Not a sad New York in the midst of a pandemic and everyone in lockdown and hospitals overflowing. Not that.
That runs too long as a title anyway.
Although the Museum of the City of New York and the Historic Society both did exhibits on what the pandemic wrought. So, but I think we could stay. I agree that we could stay away from that and have something that is optimistic, that's healing, that's looking towards the future, that's envisioning a better city. Friendship could be, I just heard something on NPR the other day about friendships and how those have altered and grown and blossomed as a result of the lockdown. So there are lots of things. I would love suggestions because I think and then what kinds of artists and how to reach artists as well. What I just learned today is that the Julia Richmond Educational Complex has an art school in there. School of Art and Design is not in our district, but I'm sure that there are plenty of talented students. Or do we want to reach local artists from the community as a first, grown-up local artists from the community as a first step? Rami?
Yeah, so I know I missed last month's meeting, but the previous month, one of the takeaways was I reached out to some art contacts I have, teacher contacts. And I haven't heard back. I'm going to reach out to more after this meeting, see what they think. But I think that there should be a mix. So some student artwork, some professional,
local, yeah,
local artists, I would think that it should be it should be students from schools in our district, whether that be local elementary schools or the high schools in JREC. So those are just ideas, and I can reach out once we have a more concrete plan, see what they would be interested in.
that'd be great. Thank you. Rita? Hi, Rita.
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow as a theme. We have a background and we have today, and then we're looking for tomorrow. Just a thought.
One thought I have is New York blooming for a spring theme. But in terms of reaching out to artists, it seems as if what we could do is start with the community board, send out a e-blast to everyone on the list and say we're looking for artists, and if you want to pick a theme, then pick a theme. But I think we definitely should start with our community and all ages, because artists have been very hurt by the pandemic, and any opportunity to help people who make a living this way would really be important. But I do think that a good start would be to use the email list.
Okay, so if we're soliciting works of art, I guess it would be by some kind of thumbnail photo. We need people to vet them because we may get a lot of responses. And of course, in trying to do all of this simultaneously, we don't know how much space we'll have. So we need to have a mechanism to narrow it down.
Yeah. Well, we have our committee here, and
our working group.
Yeah.
Let's decide on a theme so that I can craft an email, or someone else can, if there's a volunteer, and send it around for everyone's edits and input, and then once that's done, send it out. But let's figure out a theme. Okay, so I'm going to do what we normally do for votes, and everyone is invited to vote, including members of the public, since you're here as the working part of the working group, on what kind of theme we would like. So if you like I'm sorry, Rita, what is it, today, tomorrow, yesterday, today, and tomorrow?
Yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
So if that's something that you'd like, then raise your hand, please, and I'll count them up. Okay.
No one.
Well, I would vote for that one because that's similar to what I had thought of also. Okay, how about New York blooming, which would take us into the summer as well? Anyone in support of that? All those in support, raise your, no, you got to raise, I'm sorry, raise, maybe that's what we were missing from the first
There's few
one.
enough people I can count if need be.
Okay, well, we have 2 for that one. Not yet a majority, 3.
Wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.
Okay, 6 out of 14. I mean, it doesn't have to be a formal vote. It's not a resolution. Okay, so, okay, just one more time, please bear with me. If you like New York blooming, then please raise your hand. Okay. So I think that that's good, a good showing, and let's go with New York blooming. And if we have that kind of indoor space, Peggy, I don't remember, thank you for casting a vote, Stephanie. I don't remember what the vestibule in Maz Mescal looks like. Is there room for, might they be interested in any kind of 3-dimensional, like a sculptor, for instance? Or are we just calling for paintings?
Yeah, there, it's a little narrow. I can't picture a place that they could put a sculpture.
Okay. And would they be able to, do they have a window that they would be able to put anything in that would show on the street?
Yeah, there is a window. Also, it seems to me that a sculpture could go right outside the door, you know, on either side of the door. Anyway, on the sidewalk. They also have the shed that they use, the street shed for the restaurant. That was sort of, you know, and several of the restaurants in that neighborhood have these shed facilities.
Yeah, there'd be liability issues if anything happened to sculpture. And I know because I mediated one of those cases where a prominent piece of sculpture was damaged by an art gallery. So that would add to the insurance, and that would make me nervous. So I think having sculpture outside, or where they'd have to bring it in and out because they don't want to leave it out on the street, unless someone want to decorate their apartment, would be an issue. So so let's stick with canvas drawings, paintings, prints. Rami?
This is like totally random and just a thought I had, that there was a restaurant that closed. I might be confusing it with a different one, but I believe it's on 3rd Avenue and like 76th Street. It closed and they had a statue of an elephant out front. And the liquidators came, they took, like I saw the truck come in, they took everything, they gutted the place, but they left the elephant out front. Like it's a nice, it's probably 6-foot statue of an elephant. I don't know how much that weighs, but it seems enormous, but maybe they would want to donate it. I don't know. Just a totally random idea there.
Okay, well, if you buy there, send some photos.
Yeah,
of it.
I'll get you some pictures.
Okay. So we have a name, we have a theme, we have a process of talking to these landlords and shop owners. Thank you, Peggy, Adam, and Gail. What else?
So
well,
what
do
other?
We have a? I was gonna say, do we have a letter written up or some sort of script Or
No.
is there like a description? That would be helpful. Maybe we should develop a description of the program, because that will make it easier to pitch to
Well, would you
otherwise
like to
skeptical
take,
landlords.
would you like to take a first crack at that, Adam, since you know what landlords are
Sure.
looking for?
Yeah, okay. I need to know a little bit more about the timing and the process, but we can discuss that offline.
Okay. I guess timing would be soon, and we could talk about it more and see what. Do we want to have QR codes and structure it the same way that Art on the Ave did, so that people can hear, the artist can record something, people can click on it and hear the artist talking about their work or about their experience or background?
Well, you know, if this is going to be somebody from our community, and let's say we do have some kind of art show on James Cagney Way, which I think would be fantastic, an artist could give a talk.
That's a good idea for that. That would be good. We could have some do every 15 minutes, someone could come and talk about something. Okay, let's talk about that when we have that logistically. Rita.
For the opening of the art show, would it be nice to have a meet and greet of the public and the artists, if possible?
Yeah. That'd be
Are
great.
we worried about any pandemic rules with that, or are we thinking that because it's outdoors that that's not an issue?
Museums are now going to have 50% population as of April 26th, and movie houses 33rd. So I don't really see, I mean, obviously there's going to be somebody at the door who's going to take everybody's temperature, but I don't think that is a problem.
Okay.
Because I think people like to know who the artist is, and I don't know, just me.
Should we aim, since Rita, you were very kind in talking about access to James Cagney Place. I know it's not your fiefdom, but is it something that we would want to coordinate so that we're doing that in conjunction with anything on 86th Street and those restaurants? They're a few blocks apart, but it's certainly not one end of the district to the other. And then it makes for the businesses in between potentially benefiting. It gives a continuity, and it's something that could stay up for a weekend and then come down, and then we just have what's on 86th Street.
If it's outdoors, you always have the element of weather that you have to talk about. But I will tell you that between 86th Street and 96th Street, there are so many restaurants. When we first started, before the subway went up, a lot of the restaurateurs on the avenue came and had some food that you could eat on tables. They were they were pushing their own store, but it was very congenial. And then people looked at the art. I don't know how you're going to keep art up overnight on James Cagney Place without having a guard and making sure that the weather is perfect.
I know that occurred to me as I was saying it. Well, even if
can I say something? I'm so sorry, but having worked on the Carl Schurz art show, so the artists it was over a weekend, and the artists would put up their showing, their several paintings on their racks, and they would take it down at night, unless they didn't want to, but most of them would take it down at night. You just can't leave it up overnight. And then put it back up in the morning. And if it was raining, they either came if they wanted to, if they had an overhead, or they did not show that day. But the artists knew that they had to take their paintings down every night.
were those art shows the kind of art show I've seen on Cape Cod, for instance, where they have those foldable screens and art hanging on them and they have multiple paintings? Or because I guess what I keep looking to is Art on the Ave, which had one painting represented, an artist represented by one painting. And if we did that, then it's more in a theme, because we're now just looking for one piece of art from a painter, and it's much easier for them to schlep the paintings back and forth over an evening. And it's a way to tie 86th Street and an outdoor exhibit together. And the outdoor exhibit, it could be a three-dimensional piece. It could be a sculpture if it's just one thing from an artist, and they take it home at the end of the day and bring it back if they want to. So and if it takes longer, I'm thinking out loud, if it takes longer to organize the 86th Street because of the issues of the landlords and insurance and everything else, should we aim for something on James Cagney Place for, let's say, beginning mid-June? Maybe that gives us a couple of months to organize. Do you think that's doable?
Yeah.
Rita?
Yes.
Okay. And what do we need to have in order, I mean, from your point of view, from James Cagney's point of view, to be able to do this?
Nothing.
What about?
The street is closed. We don't need to go to the police department and get a permit. If there is going to be sound, I do have somebody that ran all the activities on James Cagney Place, and she has an excellent working relationship with the police department and to get a sound permit. If not, we don't need any permits whatsoever. The street is yours. It's
great. So okay, do we want to pick a date so that we have a time frame? Adam, how long do you have any, I know you probably don't have any idea, but do you have any idea of how long it might take to be able to set this up inside those spaces? It sounds like for the Mexican place that's set, but in terms of, let's say, the movie theater or any of the other landlords you might have a relationship with, just in terms of a time frame, in other words, is the middle to the end of June too soon to think that we might get something in storefronts?
No.
Okay, good. All right, so then let's pick a weekend in June that we could aim for.
I don't know whether it is going to be held this year. It was postponed last year. There was one day throughout the entire 5 boroughs. It's called Make Music New York, and it is always June 1st. We always had a tremendous crowd that came out for them because we had 3 incredible different participants in this. If Make Music New York is a viable activity this year because of people gathering in crowds, that was always more toward the center of the hill, and you had either side that were empty. I mean,
so are you
125, 150 people.
Are you suggesting that we do it the same weekend and have paintings up and down, or are you suggesting that that would be a weekend not to think about?
No, you could do both. I mean, you could think about it. I don't know if it's going to take place this year because of the gathering.
Okay. It seems kind of, I mean, we're almost at the end of April. It seems kind of soon to think about the first weekend in June, but that's just me. What does everyone else think?
Well, I think that we have to make sure it's not the same day as one of the big street fairs, but we can find that out. However, maybe not the first weekend in June. But that would be right after Memorial Day anyway, and there might be some people out of town.
So then do we want to think about the last weekend in June is close to July 4th. I don't know if that, I don't know. I don't have the calendar. I mean, I do, but I'm not looking at it. So do we want to think, and then the third Sunday is Father's Day.
Maybe the second Sunday, second weekend.
Let me just check the calendar. Oh.
Remember,
Well-
on June 22nd, we have the primary.
Well, that could be cause for celebration or dismay. What? No. So I can't figure out this. Oh, there we go. Nope. Okay, Will, are you still there, or Max? What Sundays are the dates in June?
I'm sorry, what are the day numbers of the Sundays in June?
Not the first Sunday, the second.
Sure. So we have nope, not the 12th. The 13th, the 20th, and the 27th.
Okay, so the 20th would be Father's Day.
Yep, it looks like so.
So what do you all think? Do you want to wait till July, or do you think the 13th or the 27th?
I can't do 27th, but the 13th might be good. And there's less people going away than for the long July 4th weekend.
And it's not as hot.
And
So
then-
should we aim for June 13th, and for as many places on 86 as we can get, and for the idea of doing something outdoors on James Cagney Place? Yeah, if you like the idea, just raise your hand, or if you don't like the idea, raise your hand.
Well, can we just start with James Cagney and then move it along to the next after that, rather than
the rest?
all on one day?
It seemed that it could be nice to tie it together to provide, maybe we would get more support from businesses in between them on second and third, if there are, if we're trying to do it on the same day, but we could kind of see how it goes, and see what we get in terms of art, how much there is, and how easy it is to get any spaces besides Mezcal. Does that make sense? Okay, if anyone objects or supports, just raise your hands. You know, when you're not even muted, so you could just call out, because it's not, I'm talking a lot, but it's certainly not my own decision. Well, in any event, let's aim for June 13th. City Canvas presents.
Do you only want it on Sunday, or do you want it Saturday and Sunday?
Let's aim for the weekend.
So then it's the 12th and 13th.
Right.
Okay.
And it might be interesting to see New York blooming mirrored in the park. Will there be flowers out then, Rita?
Not since we have dogs.
Yeah, I know. I'm well aware of those issues.
Very
Well,
different.
okay. So we're set on that. Liz, Daly, I'll talk to you about what we talked about. And then let's continue to work on 86th Street and see what might be available and accessible there. Adam, do you want to add anything? I am so glad that you were here. Anyone else want to add anything?
I just have a question. Okay, on 86th Street, we're going to look at all the storefronts, correct? So we're not I mean, having restaurants is terrific, but I think if we have a mix, that makes it even more interesting and stronger. So I'll particularly look at everything that is west of 2nd Avenue, since Peggy is going east, correct?
Yeah, I'll do it on the block from 1st and 2nd where
Okay.
the restaurants are.
All right, so then I'll go from 3rd over to 5th. Well, 5th, we don't really have, everything is now, we've had a restaurant that's closed, so we don't have too much, but
We have the
I
Noya
think that the
Gallery. Maybe
86th
they'll share their space.
wouldn't that be nice? But I think that in the literature for the 86th Street Association, it also talks about some of the things that they've done in pruning the trees on 85th Street. So I'm going to ask Elaine what their definite catchment area is, because if it's broader than just straight on 86th Street, and particularly given the fact that on Lex, for example, there are restaurants that are on 87th, 88th, that's another possibility. So I'll
Yeah,
find out.
especially if we're trying, if not this time, before it gets cold again, to do something in conjunction with James Cagney Place. It's a segue, it's a throughfare. So it gives people something to look at. All right, well, think about the QR codes, whether there's something that whether that's what we want to do. And I think those are interesting and professional looking, or professional, and it intrigues younger folk. Adam, you'll work on a letter to entice landlords, because you know what to ask for. We need to, I'll draft an e-blast in terms, so we're getting art submissions on the theme of New York blooming for the weekend that we have, which is good because now we have a date and a time. And I guess we'll see what comes up on 86th Street. We may want to, let's see, and we could talk about that in May and see if there's any progress, so we know whether to impose on, and it's not really an imposition, but to take up the generosity of Maz Mezcal for that weekend, or whether to hold off and see what more we could get. Okay.
On Friends of James Cagney Place, we have a very broad social network. If you get something to me, I will get it into that network. I don't do it, somebody does it, because I don't do it. But I can get all of those people who supported, and I must say that there is a very wide range from people who are coming with baby carriages to people who are senior citizens.
That's great. And then we should be looking for sponsors too. Maybe people who could contribute financially. So I'm not sure how to go about that.
And the Muslim women of New York get very interesting bands that they bring into the park, but maybe we could get them to have a band and come out onto the street. Music is a big.
It's a big draw.
It's a big draw.
Yes. Okay.
And
well, I could reach out to them. Peggy, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like we really should focus that weekend on James Cagney and not have it scattered about. So, to get more people, there's quite a distance from, 91st Street to 86th Street. And I'm not so sure people would schlep from one to the other, but I'd love to see people drawn to one place.
Well, James Cagney would be the weekend. 86th Street would be an ongoing thing for a month or 2 months.
Okay.
So it ties it together, but they don't have to go to 86th Street unless they feel like walking the 5 blocks, depending on the weather or whether the baby carriage or anything else. So, okay. I guess as we have questions, we can email around, and for the people from the public who've joined this, if you're interested in continuing participation, we could add you to, I think, max a select email list for this working group. Can we do that?
I think that Peggy's point is well taken, only because there's so many unanswered questions that we have regarding how we're going to get the art, how many people are going to be interested and want to participate. We're now almost at the end of April. So we're talking about 6.5 weeks, and not having the same liability issues at James Cagney Place. And, we can keep promoting it like this is our kickoff event. And then you build upon it with the art, along 86th Street and whatever clusters we have, because it may well be that Adam speaks to somebody who says, well, yeah, I'm willing to help, but we can't do it until X. date, so this way we don't kind of shortchange ourselves, and it becomes, in my opinion, more robust. That
Right.
we have a great event at James Cagney Place that's going to be wonderful. And
It would
set
be.
the stage. And other people go, oh, they did such a good job there. What else do we have? It creates an interest.
No, I think that's a good point, and especially I am concerned about time and want to be able to market it. But still, if we could get any kind of funding possibilities or support possibilities for written information about the artists, for whatever might help supplement, for posters maybe. Well, flyers we did those opening businesses, and we did a great job. Will did a fantastic job with that. Will, you hear me? So, and I brought them around to places so we could get marketed that way too, and asking stores if they would put them in their windows. Julia Klaus?
Actually, Alita, we had Mrs. Brown.
I know, but I just wanted to ask the public
sure.
member, a member of the public first. Thanks for your patience, Mrs. Brown. Julia?
Thank you. For the James Cagney place, I joined late, I'm sorry, so I'm not sure exactly what came before, but I do feel that to have some consideration for COVID-19 within the context of that could be important. And I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I think it can be quite spread out there. And, we could even have a way to mark it out so that it stays spread out. I do think there is a concern there.
Thank you. Well, it is outdoors and it is a whole city block, so we could do it in a way that people feel comfortable.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Brown?
Yes, I apologize for tuning in late. I thought there was a mistake with the time at 5 p.m.
Oh, that's because it's a working group. It's not the committee, but I'm glad you're here.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to suggest two things. First, perhaps you or the co-chair or a member of the committee could draft a sponsor letter listing the things that we'd like assistance with, such as flyers, money, etc. And that way a sponsor could decide what he or she or which company would like to sponsor. And the second thing I'd like to suggest that we consider the park that's adjacent to the Easton at 205 East 92nd Street. They have tables and they would put them 6 feet apart, and there is enough room there for a gathering, for a convening. It's adjacent to the building.
Do you mean to supplement or in place of James Cagney Place?
No, in addition to.
Okay. Oh, so that we could have really a lot of art.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's very close, right? It's just kind of catty corner?
Across
Yes.
the street.
Across the street. Oh, so that's even better.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That's a great idea. Okay.
Okay.
Is there are there any requirements for using that space, Mrs. Brown?
No, I can make the arrangements, not a problem.
Okay, so you could do that for the weekend of June 13th.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Rita, sorry, did I cut you off?
No, I just was going to ask if we needed permission for outside of Mrs. Brown's. I don't know who owns that space, if it's city.
My building owns the space. Related owns the space.
Well, if we could do this, maybe we'll get Related to be interested in hosting. Displaying. So that's something, because they're a big builder, a big owner. Okay.
So that's the reason why I suggest that you do a fundraiser or sponsor letter. And with that in hand, I can approach the right people to make it happen.
Okay. So who on the board wants to write the sponsor letter? No volunteers. Okay, I'll give it a crack, but I'm not really sure how to do it, but I'll try. Mrs. Brown, if you have any suggestions about content, anyone else has any suggestions, you can reach me at camp@cb8m.com. Otherwise, I'll write it as soon as I can. Oh, I also have that other letter to write. Okay, anything else?
No, that's it at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, anything from anybody else? I think we've actually accomplished quite a bit today.
I have another question. I believe the young lady that spoke last month, I think her name was Barbara Anderson.
Yes, from Art on the Ave, yes.
Yes. Did she share with the committee how much it costs for the installation to set up and to break down the costs associated with that?
I know I asked her something about costs and it was in the, I think the tens of thousands, like the mid tens, but let me just see if I could search. I'm having, as Will well knows, trouble with my computer, so.
Okay, thank you. Excuse me.
Wrong.
And Alita, I'm not sure if you see, but we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay. This if I can find the email, then that will be, we won't need that much time. And somehow Google and Apple Update are not compatible from what I understand. So I don't have that information.
I think she also had I keep thinking 40,000, which included installation and insurance.
Right.
Then that became a lesser number because the bid picked it up. And, you know, if we ended up with a couple of venues on Madison that are within the bid catchment area, maybe we could work something out with Matt or something out with Carnegie Hill Neighbors, because they all have that liability insurance just as a backup.
Right.
The bid comes in a little high.
And Art on the Ave has become a 501c3, so they could do their own fundraising and pay for their own things. But okay, so we have our assignments, we have our tasks. Samuel Adler, you have your hand up.
Hi, yes. Sorry, I'm a bit late on a work day. Question on the artists, the art that's going into the windows of these storefronts. Is there going to be a general call for art? I know there's probably a lot of hunger for artists that are looking to get the art back out into the public eye since COVID. And is there going to be an election committee, or how's that working?
Yes, we're going to e-blast it out the way the board does. And Rita Popper, who is very connected to James Cagney Place, where we're going to do our first exhibit outdoors. We'll use those social media and other networks to ask and call. I think that's what you said, Rita, call for art. So we're going to, our theme is New York Blooming. We wanted something optimistic. So we're going to do that and reach out to other to all of our local artists, kids in school, as well as grown-ups who are artists, so that we can help artists get their work seen, create a feeling of revitalization, and have something that's really nice, and hopefully will add to the quality of life on the Upper East Side, and specifically on James Cagney Place on the weekend of June 12th and 13th. So we all have our tasks. Anyone can join this, and they have to get ready for our next meeting. So Gail, I'll see you there. Max, I'll see you there. And Saida is not here. So thank you everyone for participating, for members of the public, Adam for your guest appearance, and Liz for being able to work something out. And I will see everyone. Our next our real committee meeting is May 11th at 6:30. See you all then.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for your suggestions and your input and taking on tasks. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.